These are French beans. Any beans, you sow them on their side, so not lying flat on their back, on their side, and then they don't rot away or the water doesn't collect and make them rot. The same goes for pumpkins, courgettes, any large flat seeds, sow it on it sideways, not lying flat. These will eventually need to be planted outside with something to climb up. Because they're quite big seeds, you want to plant them quite far apart, because they end up being big plants if they're big seeds. So when it comes to planting the seedlings outside, you need to be able to get them out of the pot. So put 4 in a pot that size. These tubs are great because they're like a little mini greenhouse. They've got holes in the bottom, holes in the top to let air through, but they just give the seeds a little bit more warmth to get them started. You can grow seeds in just about anything. This is a great idea. It's just recycling fruit crates, but you need to line it with something, either a plastic bag with holes in, or newspaper is good enough, just to cover the holes. It also keeps the soil nice and damp. And just top it up with soil. You could actually just grow herbs in there and not have to plant them out. That could be a permanent box. The same goes, these are a bit more sturdy and last longer, the plastic crates. You can just find these. Same again, just line it with newspaper to keep the moisture in and stop the soil falling out. Newspaper or cardboard will do. Because it's got holes up the side, you need to put something up the sides as well. If you haven't got any seed packets of seeds, what you can do, have a little look around your kitchen cupboards and fridge, and there's an amazing amount of things you might find. I've planted these. This is punch puri, and these are the things that have come up so far in the pot are fenugreek and adjoine seeds, and they've been planted for 2 or 3 weeks now, and you can see they've all sprouted up and they're ready to plant out. And I've started cropping them, just chopping them off and putting them in salads. You can use chilies, dried chilies, you can plant those seeds. I've got my own saved seeds from last year. These are peas, and I've also got some spinach. These are also flower seeds that I've collected. These are callaloo, you can eat these. This is spinach type crop. They're the seeds. And any flower seeds that I've saved from last year. I've got marigolds, poppies, wallflowers. I just scatter these on the ground. The poppies are like a little salt and pepper shaker. If you have got some pots anyway, We can sow a few seeds in these. I'm going to show you how to plant onion seeds or small seeds now. So I've firmed the soil down, I've topped it up with a bit more, and I just get a tiny weeny little pinch and just sprinkle them really sparingly across the surface of the compost. If you put too many in, they're all struggling for the little bit of soil and a little bit of light. So you can see I've hardly put any in there, but that soil will be full in a few weeks' time. And then I put a sprinkling of soil on the top. If you've forgotten to water it before, what you can do is just be really careful with the water and just dribble a tiny little bit across the top. Because we've firmed it, it shouldn't be too bad, but it's best to water it before. I've put a little saucer underneath to catch all the drips. One thing that we need to do, because I always get confused, is label it. I can make these labels using cut up milk bottle cartons and a marker pen or old lollipop sticks. It's a bit late to sow peppers and tomatoes, but some varieties you can sow. Just have a look on the packet. Some seeds, they're best sown as an indoor crop like basil, but it's the same principle. You just keep your pot inside on your windowsill. The other exception is these coriander seeds. Rather than going straight in the ground, these are actually two seeds stuck together, so if you gently crush them, they become the two seeds, and they also germinate quicker if you do this. So I'm not crushing them, I'm just trying to break them in two. Now we're going to sow some really tiny seeds. They're almost like dust rather than seeds. This is chamomile and it makes a lovely tea. It's the same principle of filling up the pot, but as you can see it is just like dust, so we have to be really careful to sprinkle that on the top of the soil. They just need a really light sprinkling of soil over the top. So I planted up this recycled container. It's a plastic crate with a compost bag inside it. It's just got a few holes in the bottom, and I've sowed my seeds directly into there. We had an experiment and we put a lettuce stump there, we put an onion stump there, and as you can see they've disappeared. My suspect is a squirrel. I think that one's the one that's had it, because he's also comes around and pulls up all my garlic. But I think 1, 2, 3 have survived. And also what happens is the seeds get moved around. So I've got this Moroccan cress, which is like a lettuce crop. I sowed it over here and it's ended up over there. So this is what happens when the squirrels get in. Spring onions haven't come up at all yet, so I've had some failures, but I've had some successes. The leeks have started coming up. I'm going to leave them there because they're not really big enough to transplant yet. But what I am going to transplant is, because this potato's getting too big, it will cover this whole half of the box. So I'll need to transplant all of these. So I'm going to transplant my beans. These are broad beans. And I'm just going to get my trowel in really nice and deep and just wiggle them out, because the roots are really quite deep. I'm just being ever so gentle. I'm holding it by the stalk, not the leaves. And I'm just easing them out really gently. So we've got one out. Just going to give that a rest there. And we've got two out. I'll just get this last little one out. So that potato then, it will be able to take over. I'm going to transplant these seedlings as well. So these are Moroccan cress. There was some peas that I sowed there, but as you can see, I think squirrels are the culprits. They've taken those and eaten them. So these are Moroccan cress. They've come quite close together, so we're just going to separate them really gently. And you can see that's going to come like about this big if we give it enough room. So we're going to take all these over to my other box. This is a deep bed made out of recycled wood. So you can see there's some broad beans already growing here, so I'm just going to put them where they haven't got, when they haven't grown. So there's some gaps in the planting. So literally just dig a little hole and plop it in and firm it down. I'm leaving a little dip so that when you water it, the water goes straight to the roots. So when I've transplanted all of these, I'm going to give them a nice good soaking, a nice good water, and I'm going to put some string all around, because these will grow quite tall. You can see these ones were sown in February inside, and I transplanted those out about 4 weeks ago, and these were only sown about 4 weeks ago. So you can see these ones have already got flowers on them. So I'm just wrapping it round the sticks. They will eventually get about this high, so they'll need some support. And that's about enough support. Now with the Moroccan cress, as I say, they get about this big, so we're going to give them some room. So I'm just going to plant them a bit deeper as well, give them a little puddle of water to sit in. They're quite fast growing, and you can pick them as little baby leaves and eat them as baby leaves, or you can let them get to be a big full size. So we're just going to water them in. Another thing that I've got is these strawberry runners that somebody gave me. Just been sitting in some water while I've had time to put them in the ground, so we can just pop them in as well. And then what I'll do is I'll give them a nice big watering. So the next thing I'm going to transplant, I will dig out all of them and transplant them into the soil. So I can dig them out in a nice big chunk and just separate them as I'm ready. The next crop along here is coriander. I'm going to leave the coriander to mature because that's quite quick cropping, and I can eat them before the potato takes over. You see, this is coriander that I sowed inside. You can't actually see what it is yet. It could be anything. It's only got 2 leaves, but when it starts growing its second set of leaves, you can recognise it. You can also smell it if you disturb it. This is beetroot. They don't like being transplanted, and what people usually do is, because they grow quite close together, because several plants come out of one seed, what people usually do is pull out the weaker ones like this one and let the stronger ones grow to a full beetroot. But what I try and do is, if you're going to pull some out anyway, well, what you might as well do is if I go and transplant them, and I have done it successfully. So I'm going to get my scissors or a screwdriver or something in there and just wiggle them out. So I'm going to leave the smaller ones in. I'm just going to put them in a little bit deeper. So as you can see, they've gone quite stringily. So I'm just going to see that one, they're so close together, so I'm going to leave the little one in the ground and pull the big one out. Holding it by its leaves and just wiggling it out, being really gentle, trying not to disturb it too much. And I'm just going to push the little one into the soil a bit more. Now if they survive underneath the potato, I've not lost anything. I'm just going to ease them apart like that. And then what I'll do, in the ground over there, I will transplant them up to there. So all that will turn into a beetroot, all being well. Yeah. So the leeks, I'm going to leave them in the ground a little bit longer until they get a little bit fatter and a little bit bigger, and then I will transplant them into the ground as well. So this potato will basically have all this to grow in with a few pieces of garlic. So I'm going to transplant some of these into the ground. These are beet roots. I've eased them out. And what I've got here is some Moroccan cress that's like lettuce. It'll grow about this big, or you can pick just little pieces and have them as mini leaves. Some tomatoes that will grow about this big and bush out. But by that time these will have gone. I've got a row of tiny weeny beetroots here that I've sowed directly into the soil. They're way off being mature enough to be able to thin them out, but these ones are ready to be thinned. They've grown their second set of leaves and they're looking a bit stringly. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put them in the ground a bit deeper so that they go right up to their leaves, where the leaves start. Now these will be happy enough growing under the tomatoes because they're a root crop and they grow underground, so they don't need that much light. So as you can see, they're growing like that. Then what I'm going to do, I've had these in, sowed these as an experiment. This is punch puri out of the cupboard, and these popped up straight away. These are, I think, these are a fenugreek. They taste nice and mustardy. I'm not sure if they're going to get much bigger than this because I've never grown them before. But I'm just going to have a go at easing one out, putting it in the ground, see if it gets any bigger, and also to see if it'll go to seed so that I can have a stock of seeds. So I'm just going to have a go and put them in the ground and see what happens. Again, I'm going to push it a little bit deeper in the ground just to give it some stability and give it a little well so that when I water it, the water goes straight to the roots and doesn't run off. Amongst this now are also other tasty things. So I think from the smell, this is a fennel. So I'm really carefully getting it out of the soil. I'm wiggling it around with the scissors, getting quite deep in there, and I'm just touching it by its stalk really gently. So I'm just going to have a go at transplanting that. Again, make a little hole and just pop it in, and really, really gently just press it down. So we'll have a see what this is like. But in the meantime, I'm more than happy just to keep snipping pieces off this and using it in my salads. It tastes delicious. So I'll just snip a little bit off, and I've been doing that throughout the last few weeks. So I'll just put that on my salad. The same thing is, this is another experiment. This is ajwain seeds. I'm going to have a little go at getting one out and transplanting it into the ground just to give it a little bit more room. So a few's come out there, so I'm just going to gently prise them apart and just put one and two in the ground and see what happens. But again, I've been using that in my salads. Just making a little hole, pushing it in. Oh, there's two there. Is that two? No, yeah, that's two. There you go. Now you can see I'm running out of soil, so I'm going to dig up a piece of land. This is what I've been doing, going on and on and on. I'll just keep digging up another little piece. So as you can see, I've got a spade and I've got a fork. Now my spade doesn't go into the ground too good straight away, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my fork in. Oh, that one's already been done. Put my fork in, put my foot on it and really wiggle it around. So you want to try and get your fork all the way down into the soil so that it's a fork's width down, yeah? So once you've done that all the way along, if it's been raining, it goes in the ground a little bit easier. So if you've got wet ground, oh, there's a beet root. If you've got wet ground, it goes in a little bit easier. Then I'm going to divide it up into little chunks so I can get it out of the ground a bit easier. I'm wiggling it around backwards, forwards and sideways. Then I can go in with my spade. And you can see it goes in a lot more easier. Yeah. So I'm getting quite deep down. Then what I'm after is that little chunk. So I'm after taking off all of this, but I need as much soil left as I can. But I don't want any of the weeds. I don't want any of these weed roots. Yeah, some of the weeds get a bit far down. I'm just knocking off all the earth. Back into the hole. Because I want the earth, but I don't want the roots. So see all these white things? I don't want any of them roots because they will grow more weeds. Now you can see that's quite nice soil, but I would add some homemade compost to it. If they're really, really deep-rooted weeds, then you need to dig as far down as they go. But I'm going to add some homemade compost to it. You can see the difference. And I'll just dig that in. And then I've got another place to plant.